Hello mate, I just bought myself a new Mac Pro. It's a workstation.
No way, I just got a new one as well. I built myself a PC. What's your specs?
8 cores my friend. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cores.
Yeah, but what about 12 core CPU?
Well, it's got 32 gigabytes of RAM.
Ah, 32 gigabytes, yeah. What about 64?
Yeah, but I've got full-size GPU with 8 gigabytes of DDR5 memory. Huh?
Oh yeah, I see. What about a proper GPU, like a 2060 Super? Huh? That actually has some CUDA cores?
Yeah, but have you got a fast storage? 256 gigabytes of storage.
How much? 256 gigabytes? I got a MacBook 10 years ago and it's got 250 gigabytes inside. But what if you times that by 4 and much faster speeds? 1 terabyte?
Well, stop showing off. I got a good deal anyway. I paid only 6K for my workstation. How much did you pay for your fancy PC, huh?
Huh? How much I paid? Oh, less than 2 grand.
No.
So jokes aside, no offense to anyone, I'm actually using Apple as well as Windows. So the whole reason for doing this video and building this PC is to create something that is better than the 2019 new cheese grater Mac Pro. And after 2 months of research and looking around and seeing what's the best things out there, I've managed to build this monster over here that is actually 3 times cheaper than the Mac Pro and better at almost every single aspect. So before we're gonna go to the specs, benchmarks and features of this PC, I'd like to mention a few things that are very important you understand before we go into the preview of this unit. First of all, when I built this PC, I actually had the video editors and the creators in mind mostly. So people who use the Premiere Pro or Adobe products and the DaVinci Resolve products, this is meant for them. So this was not meant for gaming or anything else. Every single piece of component that's inside here was to optimize the performance for video editing and creators like that, and to do it for as little money as possible. Second of all, I understand that the $2,000 price point for this can be a bit expensive for most of the people out there. For that reason, I left a little list of alternative parts in the end of the video, so you can check out some other parts if you don't need some of the features. So in here I put all the features that the Mac Pro has, but if you don't need some of the features, you can save over £700 or dollars, so you can get this machine for the same specs or probably around 90% of the performance for around £700 less. So if that is you, stick till the end of the video. Third of all, don't get confused about the pounds and dollars and different currencies that I'm speaking about. They're roughly the same price in all of the countries. And also, I'm gonna leave all the components that I'm talking about in the description. So if you're gonna buy exactly the same components, you can have the peace of mind that you're gonna get the same PC, you're gonna get the same results. So all of the pieces and components are in the description below, as well as the alternative parts. Fourth of all, if you think that building a PC is a bit of a scary process and just goes over your mind and you don't feel that you're that techie person or confident enough, I actually recorded all of how I built this PC and I'm creating a video about this, so stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, where I'm gonna talk about all the different stages you have to go through when building this PC, and I try to explain everything that's about this. So if you actually follow this video, anyone who has never even built the PC should be able to build this PC without a problem. So stay tuned for that. So now the specs. First of all, the CPU, which is the most important part of the performance here, that gives you the most performance. I went with the Ryzen 3900x, which is a 12 core and 24 thread processor with 70 megabyte cache. Now, if I would have made this video about a year ago, Intel would have probably been in the lead and I would have gone with an Intel processor, but at this point AMD produces much more bang for the buck processors, so going for AMD is absolutely awesome. So comparing this to the Mac Pro, this one has 12 cores, and then the Mac Pro, starting from the £6,000 Mac Pro, has 8 cores. This has 24 threads. The Mac Pro has 16 threads. This has 70 megabyte of cache on the CPU, and then the Mac Pro has 24.5 megabits of cache. So winning on the CPU side. This one rocks 64 gigabytes of 3200 megahertz RAM in there, Corsair Vengeance, if you're into knowing what brands I'm using. And then the Mac Pro is running 32 gigabytes on 2666 megahertz. But the Mac Pro has ECC memory. There's a little bit of an advantage for people who need that. If you're thinking if you need ECC memory or not, if you don't know what it is, don't worry, you don't need it. If you know what it is, you probably need it. So then the I/O of both of the machines, okay? The Mac Pro doesn't have that many ports, but this has a lot of the ports. So I've marked them all here, so don't, you know, slay me for looking at my notes. The Mac Pro has some really awesome I/O features. For example, 10 gigabit Ethernet ports, and it's got 2. Now that is very important for all the creators, because if you're using a NAS storage or you want to have multi-editing, you know, some kind of storage system, things like that, you need a really fast connection or Ethernet cable, which it has. So both of these have the 10 gigabit Ethernet cable. The Mac Pro has 2 slots of them, but this PC has 1 of them plus 1 gigabit Ethernet. Now Thunderbolt ports, the Mac has 6 plus 2. So there's 2 on the case and then 6 in the back. PC doesn't have any Thunderbolt ports. USB 2, the Mac Pro has only 1, which is built inside the machine. This PC has 2 USB 2s plus 1 of the old, you know, mouse or the keyboard adapter, to remember them. USB 3, the Mac has 2. This one has 15. But 2 of them are USB-C ports. So in terms of PCIe lanes, the Mac Pro has Gen 3 of PCIe lanes, and then this one has Gen 4 PCIe lanes, which means much faster data transfer. Audio ports, the Mac has 1, and this one has 5 plus 1 optical, and then 1 on the case as well. So 7 altogether. Both of them have built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. This one over here also has 2 plus 2 PCIe Gen 4 M.2 slots for super fast SSD storage and super fast SSD transfer speeds, whereas the Mac Pro has 0 of them. They have PCIe Gen 3, so that's that. In terms of storage, the SSD that comes with the Mac is 256 gigabytes, whereas this one has 1 terabyte SSD. The graphics card. On the Mac, it has a Radeon 580X Pro 8 gigabyte DDR5, which is actually just a 580X graphics card with a bit of just an upgrade on the BIOS, because it has Thunderbolt ports and things like that, which is actually just a $200 graphics card. Whereas this machine over here has the RTX 2060 Super by Gigabyte with 8 gigabytes of DDR4 memory as well. So when we're talking about cases, the Mac Pro obviously has the cheese grater case, which is quite iconic at this point. And then we have the Corsair Carbide 678C white case over here. And I know as much as the Mac Pro has the style and aluminium look and minimalistic look, I actually think this is quite cool with the design as well. Now with this one, I didn't intend it to be like this, but it ended up being completely black and white design. The only LEDs that are just on the motherboard are just red, which I wish there were some other color as well. There are a little bit of LEDs going around on the motherboard. You can turn them off if you want, but I didn't want it to look like a massive Christmas tree with all the LEDs on. So I went with no LEDs, nothing is LED, it's just completely black and white. The case is white, all the fans are white, the cooler is completely black. Sorry, the fans are black, which I think looks super, super cool. And you do have a little like accent of LED on the motherboard over there. At the moment, I don't know if you can see that, but on the motherboard I have the LEDs like a breathing effect, so I can change all the different colors, and if I want it to be just white, you can do that or turn them completely off. So depending on your taste, it's kind of draw with the design. They're also very similar size. Both of these are quite large, obviously, cases. This one is slightly bigger when you look at the actual dimensions by millimeter. It's a little bit bigger. And now, finally, the price. This one over here cost less than £2,000 for me. I paid, I think, £1,976 or something like that, whereas the Mac Pro starts from $6,000. And then this is the two models I compare to each other. Now, if you wanted the same amount of performance for the Mac that I have over here, you're gonna have to bank out around $8,000. Now that's absolutely ridiculous. So let's talk about some of the bonus things about both of the cases and both of the computers. So the Windows one over here has actually already built-in hard drive storage for you to just kind of plug your hard drive in and then off you go. You have 6 drives over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see outside. There's 2 more inside this white case over there. And then there are 3 SSD storage places in the back on the other side where you can plug in 2.5 drives. Plus, like I mentioned before, there are 4 M.2 slots on the motherboard. 2 of them I have actually an extension card I have over there, but I didn't put them in because it wasn't necessary at the moment. But there's a lot of storage upgrades available for PC. Also, not just the hard drives and the storage space, but actually I think the Windows one has much more and better upgrades that you can do with this than the Mac Pro, even though the Mac Pro has quite a lot of upgrades possible, more than any other Mac out there, but there are more that you can do over here. Also, you can have an optical DVD drive over there on the top if you want, or if you need that. I know it's not necessary in these days anymore, but it's out there, it's possible if you wanted to. So what are some of the advantages for the Mac Pro? The Mac Pro has more PCI slots on the motherboard, so you have more things to plug in. PCI cards or different whatever cards you want to plug in there. The Mac Pro actually has a built-in speaker, whatever it does. Also, another cool thing is that the Mac Pro actually comes with the keyboard and mouse. So let's talk about some of the benchmarks. Okay, first of all, we have the Geekbench benchmarks, and I have the Mac Pro benchmarks that are of the 8-core and 12-core benchmarks. First of all, we're gonna have the 8-core benchmarks. So the Mac for single core did 1031 around there, and then the Windows, this PC did it in 1327, which is around 22.3% better. Now the multi-core for the Mac Pro 8-core did it in 7994, whereas this Windows PC did it in 12,409. Now when we move on to the 12-core Mac, which is more like the £8,000 Mac Pro, so this is like the quarter of the price. The Mac Pro did it in 12,515, but the single core of the Mac Pro was 1,155. Now let's go to Cinebench R20. So in here, our Windows PC did it in 7,027. The iMac for 8-core Xeon did it in 3,665. So the Windows is 48% faster, pretty much double the performance for third of the price over here. Okay, so when you move on to the 12-core Mac over here, so we have quarter of the price, and then 12 cores, both of them have 12 cores. The Mac did it in 5,432, which is 27% slower than this Windows PC, which is absolutely, mind-boggling. It's very, very fast. Now, the other thing I wanted to test was the disk write and read speed. On the Mac, read and write for the storage SSD is up to 3.4 gigabits per second, which is up to 3,400 megabits per second. Read and write. Now, this SSD that's inside there, because of the NVMe storage and the Gen 4 PCIe lanes, we're actually getting read speed of 4,998. So it's 2 megabytes short of 5,000 megabytes, and the write speed of 4,277. So we're definitely winning the Mac on this side as well. Now you understand that this machine is very powerful and you get it for much cheaper than the Mac Pro. So now let's talk about the alternatives. Let's say you don't have that $2,000 and you want something that is a bit less but still have all this powerhouse performance. For CPU, I don't recommend you going with anything else. I'd recommend you go with this CPU. I think it's like a perfect kind of middle ground CPU. It is quite expensive, but you're gonna enjoy the performance that comes out of this CPU. Next thing is the RAM. So I went with 64 gigabytes of Corsair engines, but if you go with 32 gigabytes, and you can save around £137. The next thing is the motherboard. Now, this motherboard is quite expensive because it has a lot of USB ports. They're all USB 3.2 Gen 1, so very fast USB 3 ports. There is a 10 gigabyte Ethernet port. It has the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built in, so you don't have to use any dongles or things like that. So if you don't need these features, you can go for a cheaper motherboard. For example, the MSI X570 Gaming Plus motherboard, which costs around $150. £150, just check the links in the description, and you can save around £270, which is quite a lot. Now, this graphics card costs around 350, something like that. If you don't use that much of After Effects and maybe more graphics oriented effects inside Adobe Premiere Pro, you're not going to see much bigger performance improvement because you went with this graphics card, because Adobe can't actually at this point utilize a graphics card fully, which means that going with the lower one won't actually make a difference in your editing performance. So for that reason, I would recommend you going with the NVIDIA GTX 1660, which is around £200, and you're gonna save around 150 on the graphics card as well. Now, the next thing is the cooler. You don't actually need to buy a cooler because the CPU actually comes with the cooler that you can mount, so you don't need to pay anything extra. The reason why I went with extra is that if you're doing a lot of rendering and a lot of editing and things where you're constantly loading the CPU on 100%, you wanna keep the CPU cool, because if you don't keep the CPU very cool, your CPU is actually going to start to pull the power down from itself, so it's not going to fry itself up. So now the built-in cooler that has is very capable and it's okay, but I just wanted to be safe, and I just wanted my performance or this working performance of this machine to be very stable, because we're competing with Mac Pro over here, okay? So we need something that is very, very cool. So this Noctua air cooling cooler for the CPU is one of the best in the world, and actually does a much better job than a lot of the water coolers out there. If you're going for AIO, this is actually better. If you don't believe me, watch this video up there. So you can save around £90 on this actual cooler as well. Next thing is the SSD or storage. You can save around £70 on the storage as well if you already have hard drives and things like that, but you don't need that big of an OS SSD. So if your operating system doesn't need to be that big, you can go for 500 gigabytes instead of 1 terabyte, and you can save around £70. Unfortunately, you can't really save loads on the power supply unit. I actually went with the RM750, but you can actually go for 650, so you're saving around £10 or something like that. But I went with a bit more powerful one because I just wanted to be safe for the future upgrades. If you want to add something different or want to add in there, you want to know that you've got enough power. And then the case. You can probably find some cases that are cheaper. I wouldn't go with anything that is some random company, because you want your case to work and look cool and, you know, have features. So if you want, you know, you can easily just look inside, blah, blah, blah. If you don't have a PC case that's very well built, it's really hard to build a PC because some screws are not lining up and it gets a bit more difficult. If you put all these alternatives together, you're gonna save around £700, and this system will cost you around 1,200 to 1,300, 1,300 max, and you're gonna get pretty much the same power out of this PC. So hopefully I encouraged you and excited you to build your own PC like this one. And as you can see, it is very, very powerful, and you don't have to break your bank to actually build something like that. So if you're interested in seeing the video how I built this one and want to watch this and build this exact same system, then make sure you subscribe to this channel. More videos like this are coming out every single week. Also, I've got an idea of making the best bang for buck performance PC for different price points. So if you're interested in that as well, comment below what price point would you like to see. Hit that like button if you like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much guys for watching. I appreciate you all. I'll see you next time. I'll see you in the comment section below.